Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you all for coming. So today we will start with Nectar of Devotion. The invocation prayers for Nectar of Devotion are slightly different, just partially. So if you go on the Nectar of Devotion book, just before the contents page, it has to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. That's what we will start with the invocation prayers with. Nana Shastra Vicharinako Nipano Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuane Manyu Saryanakarano Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Anandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. We welcome Subhash Prabhu. He is from the other batch and is in the process of getting caught up on few other class recordings as well. So few weeks back, Ritu met Subhash Prabhu at the temple and Ritu recommended to join the virtual classes. So here is Subhash Prabhu. Subhash Prabhu, welcome. And please feel free to ask any and all questions, even though you are joining partway through.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Subhash Prabhu is from Nepal. He's physically here in Toronto, but originally is from Nepal. So we have few devotees from Nepal as well. Those are who are physically in Nepal, as well as some who are physically in Toronto. So you all have the Nectar of Devotion print out, the shell document that I had sent to you all. So we will be populating the chart today. So you should all have it with you, and I will explain one after the other boxes that you need to populate. So take notes on a different page right now, and I will let you know when to populate on the Nectar of Devotion print document that I had sent you. If you miss populating a particular box, you can leave space and then either inquire towards the end of the class if time permits, or you can listen to the recording to get caught up. So from our Nectar of Instruction discussion, the importance of the 4 books in Bhakti Shastri. The 4 books are Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, and Sri Shopanishad, plus of course Srimad Bhagavatam. And these books are enough to go back home to Godhead. And from the various processes and various paths to reach the goal, Bhakti process is the highest sadhana. In Bhagavad Gita and in Sri Shopanishad, it establishes that Bhagwan, Sri Krishna is the highest sadhya, means the sadhya means goal, where I have to go. And bhakti is the highest process to reach the goal. Nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion describe how bhakti is to be practiced. So philosophical understanding is through Bhagavad Gita and Shishopanishad, and the practical application is through nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion. Bhagavad Gita has brief directions on how to practice bhakti. Example 10.9, 9.14, 9.34. There are many other verses like 8.7, 9.26, 9.27, 7.1, 18.65, 18.66. I'm only giving few important verses. Nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion has detailed description on how to practice bhakti. Bhagavad Gita analyzes the various processes and establishes the supremacy of bhakti. Nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion, they do not mention about these other processes such as Ashtanga Yoga or even Karma Yoga, because it assumes that by now you have accepted that bhakti is the best way. And therefore, in nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion, the focus is on how to practice bhakti. Nectar of devotion will compare bhakti with other processes and will glorify the supremacy of bhakti compared to other processes, and then start with details on bhakti. Nectar of devotion will describe various qualities of Bhagwan, and nectar of devotion will give you 64 items of devotional service that you can practice on a day-to-day basis so as to make your 24-hour day involved in bhakti. Nectar of devotion has a deeper practical instruction on the speciality of bhakti rasa. Nectar of instruction elaborates the process of bhakti and enables us to apply those principles in our day-to-day life. So, as I had explained that nectar of instruction book looks like a tiny book, but is very deep. Each statement is deep. Similarly, nectar of devotion is also very heavy discussion. At least at the start will feel very heavy. And the chart that I gave you, the overview chart, will help to ease the anxiety in understanding nectar of devotion. Nectar of devotion has a deeper practical instruction on the speciality of the bhakti rasa as is practiced in the Gaudiya Madhava Sampradaya. So Rupa Goswami's masterpiece is Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada translated as Nectar of Devotion. So if you look at Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is the Sanskrit of Nectar of Devotion. If you look at the words Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, so Bhakti means devotion rasa means mellow or flavor or a rasa, not just um, a juice taste, example, mango rasa or sugarcane rasa. So rasa means sweet emotion, and amrit means nectar, and Sindhu means ocean. And therefore, Prabhupada translated Bhakti Rasa Amrit Sindhu as nectar of devotion. So, if you recall the other Sanskrit books, such as Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, so they are there in Sanskrit, and then Prabhupada has translated verse by verse for us. Now, Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada translated it differently. So, the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu has the Sanskrit verse by verse by verse. And Nectar of Devotion is a very technical book. And translating that verse by verse by verse, how it is there in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, would have been quite a demanding task for Srila Prabhupada. And even if Srila Prabhupada translated the verse by verse from English to Sanskrit, it would have been quite a challenging task for all of us to understand Nectar of Instruction that way. Therefore, what Srila Prabhupada did for Nectar of Devotion translation, instead of going the verse by verse translation from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada presented Nectar of Devotion as a summary study, similar to the Krishna book being the summary of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. Now, this Nectar of Devotion is one of the most important book in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, because it speaks about the concept of Madhurya Rasa. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realization so far? So, I can tell you upfront that Nectar of Devotion is very heavy, and ask questions as much as you can to understand this Bhakti Rasa. It's largely Nectar of Devotion discussion is focused on this Bhakti Rasa. So ask questions. I will try to explain in simple terms as much as is possible, but definitely Nectar of Devotion is a very technical book and is a little heavier topic as well. So we will now start populating the chart that I had given you earlier. So everybody should have the chart in front of them that you can see on the screen. And we are on page 1. So page 2 has few smaller charts. We'll first populate the chart on page number 1. So the chart that we'll populate is actually explained in Nectar of Devotion in the introduction, but it's little difficult to understand from the Nectar of Devotion introduction. Is there in paragraph number 7 without that visual. So I created this visual for myself and I'm sharing with you all. If it is helpful for you, you can keep it and use it. If it is not helpful, you can just trash it. So even the Nectar of Instruction chart that I had given you, I had created it for my own understanding and I shared with all of you. Same idea. If it's useful for you, you can keep it. Otherwise, you can trash it. So the various other charts that you have on page 2 of the printout, we will get those populated across various chapters that we'll cover. So we will be covering up to chapter 19. The Nectar of Devotion book goes up to chapter 51. But in Bhakti Shastri course, and Srila Prabhupada wanted us to understand at least the first 19 chapters. And Prabhupada said, if you understand the first 19 chapters, the rest will follow. You will understand by itself as time progresses and as you get purified. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations before we start populating? So each box will come up on screen highlighted in yellow, and I will explain what you will be populating. So try to populate in the respective boxes. Each of the box has a relevance. Each of the lines, each of the dotted line, each of the arrow, everything has a significance, and you will soon understand. So try to populate in the respective boxes what I will be asking you to populate. So on top of your chart on page 1, it says Nectar of Devotion Overview. It has preface. And the last big column under brief details, which is highlighted in yellow, that's what you will populate. There are 3 points you are going to write. First, Srila Prabhupada introduces Rupa Goswami. Second, Srila Prabhupada introduces BRS briefly. BRS is Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Third, the concept of Bhakti Rasa. So as we said, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, there was this word ocean. And Prabhupada used that word ocean to explain. So ocean has 4 sides. So on your chart, you can populate. You have the second column from the left, says eastern side, which covers chapters 1 to 19. And still in the second box from your left, under chapters 1 to 19, you can populate varieties of devotional service. So ocean, there are waves. On your chart, the third column from your left, you can populate where it says first and then you have blank space. So it's first wave. And the first wave covers introduction plus chapter number 1. And right under where it says introduction plus chapter number 1, you can populate general description of devotional service. Everybody with me? I want you to please ask questions if you're not following. or if you need some clarification. Yes, no, confirm please. Silence.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
The rest of you, everybody on the same page?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
All right, thank you. So we'll continue to populate. Then you have the box under title, you have introduction. And on the last box that you have under brief details, besides introduction, you will populate 3 items. First is Mangala Charan, means invocation of auspiciousness. Second, contents of the book, meaning overview. Third, definition of pure devotional service. Then under title, you already have it populated. Chapter 1, characteristics of pure devotional service. And on the last big column that you have under brief details, you will populate 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. So for the rest of the chart that we'll populate, this column under title is coming directly as the chapter title from Nectar of Devotion. So if you are short of time when you are writing, you can skip the title box because it's coming right from the book. You can focus on writing the rest of the columns, and that should help you. But it's your choice. If you want to write, it's up to you. All right. Everybody with me? Everybody populated the first wave so far?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So now you have this arrow where you will write in the third column from your left, you will write second wave. And you have chapters 2 to 16 under second wave, and you can populate underneath sadhana bhakti has 2 parts, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti. If you recall from our Nectar of Instruction overview discussion, there were 2 arrows running on your overview chart on the left side. One was from Shraddha to Prema. One arrow was called Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and then one arrow was Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So those same wordings are here. And then on your chart, you have chapters 2 to 6. What do those chapters explain? You can populate in the space that is highlighted in yellow, which is almost the last big box on your chart, you can populate sadhana bhakti in practice. All right, so now I'll give you explanations for each of the chapters. So chapters 2 to 6, then you have this chapter titles coming directly from the book. You can skip now, or you can write in essence of time or in essence of space, whichever way works for you. So chapter 2 title is The First Stages of Devotion. And besides chapter 2, the last big column under brief details, you will populate sadhana bhakti and Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Then for chapter 3 under title, chapter 3 is titled Eligibility for Candidate for Accepting Devotional Service. And the last big column under brief details for chapter 3, you populate chapter 3 talks about the 3 levels: Kanishtha Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. Chapter 4 is titled Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation. And on your chart, the last big column under brief details, you can populate entire chapter 4 is based on quotations how a devotee does not desire for liberation, rather desires just to serve Krishna. Chapter 5 is titled Purity of Devotional Service. And besides chapter 5, the last big block under brief details, you have 3 points to write. You can populate first pious birth. Second is rituals for purification. And third, varnashram. Chapter 6, title is How to Discharge Devotional Service. And under brief details for chapter 6, we have 3 points to write. First is 10 activities to accept, which is pravrti. Second, 10 activities to avoid, which is nivritti. And third, 44 additional items. So basically, chapter 6 describes 64 items of sadhana bhakti that one can do to make 24-hour day as Krishna conscious as possible. Everybody with me so far?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
All right, thank you, very good.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So we are continuing on under second wave. And now for chapters 7 to 13. Besides chapter 7 to 13, you can populate under the last big block detailed explanation of items 1 to 64 from chapter 6. So understand what's going on. So chapter 6 has a laundry list of 64 items. Chapter 6 does not explain anything. Just simply gives a listing of 64 items one after the other. And then from chapters 7 to 13, each of those 64 items are described in detail at great length. Everybody with me? Everybody understands the flow?
Yes, Prabhu.
Very good. So chapter 7, and again the title of each of the chapters come directly from the Nectar of Devotion book, so you can skip, you have to. Chapter 7 is titled Evidence Regarding Devotional Principles. And on your chart, the last big block under brief details for chapter 7, you will populate explanation of items 1 to 18 from chapter 6. Chapter 8 is titled Offenses to be Avoided. And on your chart, under last column, under big brief details for chapter 8, you populate explanation of item number 19 from chapter 6, meaning a whole chapter on offenses to avoid. Almost all of you have attended that offenses to avoid class in our Bhagavad Gita study. So it comes directly from Nectar of Devotion, chapter 8. Then chapter 9 is titled Further Consideration of Devotional Principles. And under brief details for chapter 9, you can populate explanation of items 20 to 42 from chapter 6. Chapter 10 is titled Techniques of Hearing and Remembering. And under brief details for chapter 10, you populate explanation of items 43 to 46 from chapter 6. More on hearing, remembering, and meditation. Chapter 11 is titled Aspects of transcendental service. So under brief details for chapter 11, you will populate. You have a little more to write. You will populate explanation of items 47 to 53 from chapter 6. Key points covered in chapter 11 are: 1. Servitorship. 2nd, Sakhyam. 3rd, surrender.
Sorry, Prabhuji, what is the second one?
Okay, I'll repeat. So for chapter 11, under brief details, explanation of items 47 to 53 from chapter 6. Key points covered in chapter 11 are: 1. Servitorship. 2nd, Sakhyam. 3rd, surrender. Subhash Prabhu, you got it?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Chapter 12 is titled Further Aspects of Transcendental Service. Under brief details column for chapter 12, you populate explanation of items 54 to 59 from chapter 6. Chapter 13 is titled 5 Potent Forms of Devotional Service. So you have a little more to write on the brief details for chapter 13. So write small. Under brief details, you populate explanation of items 60 to 64 from chapter 6. The 5 potent forms of devotional service are: first, Gopinath worship. Second, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Third, associating with advanced devotees. Fourth, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Fifth, living in Mathura. Everybody understands so far what happened? Somebody wants to explain what happened in chapter 6 and what happens in chapter 7 to 13? Everybody should try to explain. Somebody?
Prabhuji, I can try.
Go ahead, Tara.
Chapter 6 is the list of activities of the devotional service, whereas from chapter 7 to 13 is the detailed explanation of each item from 1 to 64 listed in chapter 6.
Very good. Correct point. Everybody on the same page?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, chapter 14. Title is Devotional Qualifications. And under brief details column for chapter 14, you will populate. Key point covered is relation between various spiritual practices and pure devotional service. All right. Then chapter 15, title is Spontaneous Devotional Service. And on your chart under brief details, besides chapter 15, you will populate. Key point covered is Ragatmika Bhakti. Ragatmika Bhakti. Chapter 16 is titled Spontaneous Devotion Further Described. And under brief details for chapter 16, you will populate. Key point covered is Raga Nuga Bhakti. Raga Nuga. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realization so far? All right. So then you have third wave. So we populated first wave, introduction and chapter 1. We populated second wave as chapters 2 to 16. And chapters 17 and 18 are third wave. And you can populate underneath chapters 17 and 18, under third wave, you can populate Bhava Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti is the third wave. And the chapter title and brief details will follow as we populated for the initial chapters. So chapter 17 is titled Ecstatic Love. And under brief details for chapter 17, you will populate. Key points covered are: first, definition of bhava. Second, primary and secondary characteristics of bhava. And last is how bhava is achieved. Chapter 18 title is Character of One in Ecstatic Love. And under brief details for chapter 18, you will populate. You have a little more to write in small font. Besides chapter 18, under brief details, populate. Key points covered are: first, characteristics of one in ecstatic love, meaning in Bhava Bhakti. Second, neophyte and non-devotee exhibiting signs of Bhava Bhakti. Third, how to convert to genuine Bhava. And fourth, unexpected symptoms that are genuine. Okay, so now we are on the fourth wave. You can populate fourth wave, and it is chapter 19, and you can populate Prema Bhakti. Prema Bhakti is the fourth wave. And chapter 19 is titled Devotional Service in Pure Love of God. The last big column under brief details for chapter 19, you are populating, you have few points to write, so write in small font. Key points covered are: first, primary characteristics of prema. Second, secondary characteristics of prema. Third, types of prema. And fourth, achieving prema. Everybody populated the chart. Everybody understands what's going on or what the flow is for Nectar of Devotion.
Yes.
So as I explained at the start, that ocean has four sides: eastern, southern, western, and northern. For our study, as well as for Bhakti Shastri, it's only the eastern side, meaning the first 19 chapters is what we will cover. And ocean has waves. So first wave is introduction plus chapter 1. Then second wave is sadhana bhakti, which is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti for chapters 2 to 16. Then third wave is chapters 17 and 18 on Bhava Bhakti. And the fourth wave is chapter 19 on Prema Bhakti. So you do have space at the bottom of your chart for southern side of the ocean, the western side of the ocean, and northern side of the ocean. These are briefly discussed in the first 19 chapters that we'll cover, but there is detailed description on those topics in rest of Nectar of Devotion from chapter 20 to 51. So we will not be covering those chapters 20 to 51. You can reach to Prema Bhakti by chapter 19. Your goal is done. But if you are interested to know what is there in the southern side, western side, northern side, I can explain, but it is secondary right now. Everybody on the same page so far?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So you have numbering nomenclature in various scriptures. And similarly, there is numbering nomenclature in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, meaning the Sanskrit of Nectar of Devotion. In Nectar of Devotion, there are no verse references because Prabhupada has given Nectar of Devotion as a summary. But I will explain to you the nomenclature, the numerical nomenclature, because we will be memorizing verses from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu for Nectar of Devotion. So the first verse that we will all memorize, essentially Nectar of Devotion is one verse, which is the pure devotional service verse, which starts with Anya Vilashita Shunyam. Now this Anya Vilashita Shunyam verse comes from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and the reference is 1.1.11. So understand this reference, and all of you will try to explain this reference, and it will be very easy to understand the verses in terms of where they are coming from. So let's understand this 1.1.11 reference in terms of how it falls on the overview chart that we populated. So the first one from the left side refers to the four ocean sides, meaning eastern side is the first one that is referring to. The second one from the left side that refers to the first wave or any of the wave. But because the verse says 1.1.11, therefore the second one refers to the first wave, meaning general description of devotional service. And the 11 refers to the text number or the shloka number in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Everybody follows, and we will again practice, and there are few verses across various waves, but I want somebody to explain, if you understand 1.1.11, what does it refer to? Everybody should try to explain actually. If you want, I can explain it again, but somebody should try to explain. Either way, I got silence.
I'm not sure, Prabhu, but I can try.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first one is the first side, which is the eastern side. The second one is the first wave, and 11 is the 11th shlok of the first wave.
Okay, very good. So you are correct. So the first one is Eastern. And because we are only going to cover the Eastern side, so all the verses that we'll get will always start with 1. The second numerical number in our example is 1, therefore, because it refers to first wave, but it can also be 2 if it refers to the second wave, it can also be 3 if it refers to the third wave. So the second numerical 1 or the second numerical refers to any of the wave, which can be 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the last number is the verse reference relevant to that particular wave. So Dara, you explained it correctly. So here's a test for all of you. So I gave the first verse of 1.1.11, which we'll be memorizing. The second verse that we'll be memorizing is definition of sadhana bhakti, and the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu verse reference is 1.2.2. So I want someone to please explain what does 1.2.22 mean. Somebody besides Dhara? Meghna Samant?
I can try. So 1.1.2 would mean that the first one is the first side, which is the eastern side. 1.1.2, right?
No, 1.2.2 is sadhana bhakti.
1.2.2. Okay. Second is the second. The 2 is the second wave, and the last 2 is the text of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that
Very
they
good,
refer to.
very good, correct point. Everybody on the same page, everybody understands the numerical nomenclature from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Very good. Okay. Now have undivided attention on the spiritual endeavor that you'll be doing every day after every class. So the standard spiritual endeavor after every class without me stating is to read all the chapters of all the purports that we discuss in the class. And for the points number 2, 3, and 4, so the first was you will read from Nectar of Devotion book, whatever we cover. For points number 2, 3, and 4, you will populate your responses on the Google form. So point number 2 is that you will explain one or more striking points from our current class discussion. Point number 3, you will ask at least one inquiry, and similar to Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, each statement is very deep. Nectar of Devotion is a very, very important book and is a very, very heavy book. You will need lot more time to read. You visualize that I am going very, very slow because it is very heavy conversation. You will need lot more time to read Nectar of Devotion. Therefore, don't allocate 15 minutes to read on the day before the next class. No, you will stumble. You will need to contemplate on each statement in Nectar of Devotion. Therefore, you will need lot more time. It is being said that one should read Nectar of Devotion at least 7 times. Then you may get a little tiny glimpse of what Nectar of Devotion is trying to explain. So it's a very heavy discussion. Be prepared. Bring all your questions. I will try to explain as best as possible from what I have heard from previous acharyas and from Srila Prabhupada. The fourth item of your spiritual endeavor is Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Now, Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion lectures, what you do is you first do the previous endeavor, meaning you read the Nectar of Devotion first and then come to Prabhupada lecture, because Prabhupada expands from what is there in Nectar of Devotion. Now, Srila Prabhupada's each statement in the lecture starts with some verse, ends with some verse, and the entire lecture is littered with verses. Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion lectures are very, very heavy lectures. And Srila Prabhupada spends a lot of time in his lectures on the rasa point, which essentially is Nectar of Devotion. Srila Prabhupada has roughly 45 lectures on Nectar of Devotion, and 2/3 of those lectures are on preface and introduction only, because Prabhupada lays a very solid foundation on the rasa point. So we will listen many of those lectures, and many of those lectures of Srila Prabhupada are titled the same title. The title being The Complete Science of Bhakti Yoga. So the way to follow or the steps to follow for Prabhupada lectures are that you first read Nectar of Devotion chapter, you follow our conversation in our class, then come to Prabhupada lecture. So these Prabhupada lectures on Nectar of Devotion, Ritu is going to get goosebumps, because most of the lectures Prabhupada gave while physically being in Vrindavan. So you will notice when you listen to Prabhupada lectures of Nectar of Devotion, you will hear the background, birds are chirping and cuckoos are cooking. You will hear those natural sounds of birds from Vrindavan, and therefore Ritu is going to get goosebumps because she is physically far away from Vrindavan for a little while. So I want somebody to please explain the spiritual endeavor, all the points that I explained, after I finish explaining the fifth point of the spiritual endeavor. The fifth point of the spiritual endeavor is that I will give you verses to memorize from Nectar of Devotion. So in the Nectar of Devotion book, the Sanskrit verses are not there. The verses come from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So as we progress, I will give you the verses. They will come up on screen. You can take a snapshot. The verses, most of the verses have the Sanskrit and the word for word and the translation. And you can try to memorize those. So somebody wants to explain the 5 points of spiritual endeavor that you'll be doing after every class.
Hare Krishna. So after every class, we read the chapter. Then in the inquiry form you provide, we give our responses and ask inquiries. And then you will give us verses to memorize. And we also, like before we give the responses, we ensure we have read and listened to Srila Prabhupada's lectures.
Okay, very good. So on the Google form, you will also populate points from Prabhupada lectures also, not just striking points and inquiries. So you'll also populate some points from Prabhupada lectures also. So Prabhupada lectures for Nectar of Devotion are very, very, very heavy lectures. So we will go slow in Nectar of Devotion. You would have visualized that I am going very slow already so far, because Nectar of Devotion is very, very heavy, and we will try to understand the bhakti rasa, the concept of bhakti rasa that Srila Prabhupada wants us to understand from Nectar of Devotion. So if you want some benefit from Nectar of Devotion, your spiritual endeavor is of utmost importance. Many of you have become serious lethargic. Yes, I said serious lethargic. If you are going to continue that, your lethargy, you are wasting your time here. Yes, you are wasting your time here. You might just go back and focus on Bhagavad Gita. Because if you don't do your spiritual endeavor, you are not going to understand anything about Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion you will understand by understanding Prabhupada lectures, not what I will say. I will only give you pointers which will help you read and then understand Prabhupada lectures. It is Prabhupada lectures which are very, very heavy is what is going to make you understand Nectar of Devotion. So I have stopped telling all of you about endeavoring on and not endeavoring on spiritual endeavors. But if you are not going to endeavor on Nectar of Devotion, I recommend you to just drop off because you are wasting your time. You are not going to get, you will get little benefit by hearing. But if you really are interested and you are putting in effort to attend the classes, well, then follow up with the spiritual endeavor also. Therefore, you should have a lot of inquiries on Nectar of Devotion. If you don't have inquiries, you either already know what rasa means or you are not understanding it at all, or you are not endeavoring at all. So endeavor is the most important point if you want to understand Nectar of Devotion. And when I say understand means you get a tiny glimpse of Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion is very, very heavy scripture to understand, as well as it is a very, very important scripture in the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Everybody on the same page, everybody committed for spiritual endeavors.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
I still only got yes from few. The rest of you can decide whether you want to continue or whether you want to drop off. Is up to you. All right. So let's study a little bit from preface. So what you can do in your Nectar of Devotion book is you can number the paragraphs and we will read. So in my Nectar of Devotion book, I have literally numbered them. It's okay for you to number in your book, and then it's easier to follow what we are reading and discussing. So if you look at the overview chart that we populated today, under preface, there are 3 key points. One is Srila Prabhupada introduces Rupa Goswami. Second, Srila Prabhupada briefly introduces Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. And third is the concept of Bhakti Rasa. So we will start reading from Nectar of Devotion preface. And the key starting points are Bhakti Rasa versus material Rasa. That how Bhakti Rasa is permanent Rasa, while material Rasa fluctuates between Bhoga and Tyaga. Because material pleasure is Chapala Sukha. Chapala Sukha means flickering pleasure. Srila Prabhupada also explains how we are preparing our next life. So we will go to paragraph number 6 in preface. The paragraph number 6, which starts with Bhakti means devotional service. Diksha, are you able to read paragraph number 6, which starts Bhakti means devotional service?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Bhakti means devotional service. Every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. Every one of us within this world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the impetus for such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Driven by affection for his wife and children, a family man works day and night. A philanthropist works in the same way for the love of the greater family, and a nationalist for the cause of his country and countrymen. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Bhakti rasa is a mellow different from the ordinary rasa enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night in order to relish a certain kind of rasa, which is understood as sense gratification. The relish or taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore, mundane workers are always apt to change the position of enjoyment. A businessman is not satisfied by working the whole week, therefore, wanting a change for the weekend, he goes to a place where he tries to forget his business activities. Then, after the weekend is spent in forgetfulness, he again changes his position and resumes his actual business activities. Material engagement means accepting a particular status for some time and then changing it. This position of changing back and forth is technically known as bhoga tyaga, which means a position of alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation. A living entity cannot steadily remain either in sense enjoyment or in renunciation. Change is going on perpetually, and we cannot be happy in either state because of our eternal constitutional position. Sense gratification does not endure for long, and it is therefore called chapala sukha, or flickering happiness. For example, an ordinary family man who works very hard day and night and is successful in giving comfort to the members of his family thereby relishes a kind of mellow, but his whole advancement of material happiness immediately terminates along with his body as soon as his life is over. Death is therefore taken as the representative of God for the atheistic class of men. The devotee realizes the presence of God by devotional service, whereas the atheist realizes the presence of God in the shape of death. At death, everything is finished, and no one has to begin a new chapter of life in a new situation, perhaps higher or lower than the last one. In any field of activity, political, social, national, or international, the result of our action will be finished with the end of life, that is sure. Hare Krishna.
So, many important points explained by Srila Prabhupada. So, Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti not as devotion, rather, Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti as devotional service. So, devotion refers to the internal side, meaning your feelings, and service refers to activity. And then Prabhupada explained about bhoga and tyaga. Bhoga means enjoyment. Initially, we get some pleasure, but we get frustrated because it does not satisfy us. Therefore, we lead to tyaga, that I will renounce. That when we get satiated with enjoyment, then we give it up. Or when we get desires again, then we go back to bhoga. So we keep fluctuating like a pendulum between bhoga and tyaga. Because these two are extremes. One extreme of the pendulum is bhoga, that I want to enjoy. And the other extreme of the tyaga is that, okay, I will renounce. And either of these two extremes of bhoga and tyaga, they do not endure. because the pleasure in the material world is chapala sukha, is flickering pleasure. It's not permanent and it does not satisfy anyone. Prabhupada gives the comparison of the material world, rasa, that anyone doing any activity in the material world, no matter what activity, even say those who have children or niece and nephews, playing with children or niece and nephews, even that activity you are doing because you have some rasa, something enjoyable to get back. That's why you are doing that activity. And Prabhupada explains many points about householder or philanthropist or nationalist. They all have certain rasa, therefore they are engaged in those respective activities. But they are all mundane rasa. They don't endure. They die after a certain time, and therefore we keep fluctuating like a pendulum between bhoga and tyaga. The material world rasa is chapala sukha, flickering pleasure. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realization so far? Okay. We will now read paragraph number 7 from preface. Ritu will read. So the paragraph number 7 starts. Bhakti rasa, however, the mellow relished in transcendental loving service of the Lord. So in the previous paragraph, Prabhupada explained about the material rasa. And now in paragraph number 7, Prabhupada is explaining the bhakti rasa. Ritu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Bhakti Rasa, however, the mellow relished in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, does not finish with the end of life. It continues perpetually and is therefore called Amrit, that which does not die but exists eternally. This is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. The Bhagavad Gita says that a little advancement in Bhakti Rasa can save the devotee from the greatest danger, that of missing the opportunity for human life. The rasas derived from our feelings in social life, in family life, or in the greater family life of altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, etc., do not guarantee that one's next life will be as a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. A living entity is offered a particular type of body as a result of his action in the present body. These activities are taken into account by a superior authority known as Deva, or the authority of God. This Dev is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the prime cause of everything. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that a man that takes his next body by a Dev Netrana. Prabhuji, sorry, can someone else read it?
Yeah. Monarch Prabhu, you can continue reading.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhu, from where I have to start?
Yeah, see, wherever she stopped, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the middle of the paragraph, that line.
In Srimad Bhag.
Start.
Yeah, this Deva is explained in Bhagavad Gita as the prime cause. You can start from there. Right in the middle
In
of
Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that a man takes his next body by Deva Netram, which means by the supervision of the authority of the Supreme. In an ordinary sense, Deva is explained as destiny. Deva supervision gives us a body selected from 84 lakh forms. The choice does not depend on our selection but is awarded to us according to our destiny. If our body at present is engaged in the activities of Krishna consciousness, then it is guaranteed that we will have at least a human body in our next life. A human being engaged in Krishna consciousness, even if unable to complete the course of Bhakti Yoga, takes birth in the higher divisions of human society so that he can automatically further his advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, all bona fide activities in Krishna consciousness are Amrita or permanent. This is the subject matter of Nectar of Devotion.
This is the subject matter of Nectar of Devotion, that the activities of Krishna consciousness. So chapter 6 will give you a laundry list of 64 items of devotional services. If you do most of them, or at least some of them, you will have your entire day as Krishna conscious as possible. We will discuss that at great length when we reach chapter 6 and onwards. So we already discussed that material rasa is chapala sukha, is flickering. But bhakti rasa is amrita, is eternal, does not fade, life after life after life. And we will learn to develop these rasas. We already have. It's not developing something new, so reviving. All of us, including animals also, they have the Krishna consciousness dormant, sitting dormant. And by these activities, we are trying to revive our bhakti rasa. So this bhakti rasa is essentially the crux of the entire nectar of devotion that we will cover. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has spent from the 45 lectures, about 2/3 of the lectures, which are 30 in number, are simply focused on this point of rasa. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Monarch.
Prabhu, I like this sentence very much. That businessman example, that wanting a change for weekend and goes for a place where he tries to forget. Because I'm looking myself like 3 or 4 years back, before I started these classes, I was doing the same thing, that
Very good.
looking for a change.
Yeah, very good. Exactly. Very good example. Thank you for sharing, Monarch Prabhu. Exactly. And Monarch Prabhu is not alone. We all have been doing this, or at least continue to do this, that we work Monday to Friday, then we say, oh, now I need a break. I have to go here or there. And then from the break, we get tired from the break. And then we say, oh, now I am so tired from the break. I need to go back to work. And then this cycle continues. That next week we again get tired at work and we again need break. So this cycle continues because the material rasa, or the material pleasure, is chapala sukha, is flickering. Therefore, we keep fluctuating between bhoga and tyaga like a pendulum. Very good. Rest of you, questions, comments, realizations?
So probably I think it is good that you are going slow, because this nectar of devotion is kind of too many jargons.
Yeah, you
Like
are correct.
Raganuga Bhakti, Rupanuga
Yeah.
Bhakti,
Yeah, you are correct.
difficult to
And
listen.
yeah, you are correct. And therefore I say, nectar of devotion is heavy, and I am going slow because all these terms, as Kunal Prabhu correctly pointed out, that you have all these new terms, and when we hit chapter 15, 16, you will be like, what? They are overlapping terms, and we will go slow. We'll try to absorb. But this bhakti rasa, or nectar of devotion, you cannot force onto anything. You have to uncover, you have to relish the study of nectar of devotion. Therefore, your endeavor is very important every week. And you will need lot more time for your endeavor. Very good. Thank you, Kunal Prabhu. Rest of you, questions, comments, realizations? All right, we'll read paragraph number 8. Meghna Gupta will read. So paragraph number 8 says, Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student of Nectar of Devotion. So paragraph number 8 starts with, this eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student. Meghna Gupta.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student upon studying the nectar of devotion. Adoption of Bhakti Rasa or Krishna consciousness will immediately bring one to an auspicious life free from anxiety and will bless one with transcendental existence, thus minimizing the value of liberation. Bhakti Rasa itself is sufficient to produce a feeling of liberation because it attracts the attention of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Generally, neophyte devotees are anxious to see Krishna or God, but God cannot be seen or known by our present materially blunt eyes senses. The process of devotional service, as it is recommended in the Nectar of Devotion, will gradually elevate one from the material condition of life to the spiritual status, wherein the devotee becomes purified of all designations. The senses can then become uncontaminated, being constantly in touch with Bhakti Rasa. When the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in Bhakti Rasa life. And any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in the transcendental Bhakti Rasa stage of life can be relished perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasas or mellows turn into eternity. In the beginning, one is trained according to the principles of regulation under the guidance of the acharyas or spiritual master, and gradually, when one is elevated, devotional service becomes automatic and is characterized by spontaneous eagerness to serve Krishna. There are 12 kinds of rasas as well as will be explained in this book. And by renovating our relationship with Krishna in 5 primary rasas, we can live eternally in full knowledge and bliss. Hare Krishna.
All right, very good. So the paragraph starts with a very important line that this eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student of Nectar of Devotion. So seriousness is important. Your endeavor is important. So I'm only going to read one more paragraph from preface, but preface is few pages. So one of your endeavor for today is to read the entire preface, and you will have a lot more questions to ask. So I'm not going to teach you anything in full. And again, I cannot even teach you anything to begin with for Nectar of Devotion. It is for you to endeavor and uncover your rasa. And most of the learning that you will have will come from Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Prabhupada's lectures on Nectar of Devotion are spectacular, and they are spectacularly heavy. So you'll need a lot of time, not only to read, but to also listen to Prabhupada lectures. You will need a lot of time. Prabhupada's each statement in the lecture is also very, very heavy. And of course, you will like to listen to Prabhupada lectures multiple times because you will hear the birds chirping in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was sitting in some place outside in Vrindavan that Prabhupada gave these lectures. So what Prabhupada did for Nectar of Devotion was, for 2 continuous months, every single day, Prabhupada gave lectures on Nectar of Devotion. And those are these 45 lectures. And then some were in Bombay. Rest of the lectures were in Bombay. And that too also in continuous days. But the Vrindavan lectures, most of them are from Vrindavan. Prabhupada is sitting in some place outside. I don't know what place is that. but you can hear the birds chirping in the background in some of the lectures. Questions, comments, realizations? All right, we'll read paragraph number 9. And this paragraph is that the basic principle of living condition is that we have the propensity to love someone. Like it is naturally in us. Right now in our contaminated state, we are loving our own senses, our own body, our family members, or worst case scenario, our nation or our pet cat or dog. We have to learn to transfer this loving propensity to Krishna. Meghna Saman, paragraph number 9, starts the basic principle of living condition.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. Even an animal like a tiger has this loving propensity, at least in a dormant stage, and it is certainly present in the human beings. The missing point, however, is where to repose our love so that everyone can be happy. At the present moment, the human society teaches one to love his country or family or his personal self, but there is no information where to repose the loving propensity so that everyone can become happy. That missing point is Krishna. The nectar of devotion teaches us how to stimulate an original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life.
The missing point where to repose our love so that everyone can be happy, that missing point is Krishna. Material love is temporary. And to begin with, there is no such thing as love in the material world. Material loving propensity expands from one phone to many, and every 2 months or even less than 2 months, I need a new phone. And in the material world, this love moves from one object to other in an instant. So the expansion to family, then to nation, humanity. So expansion is good because moving from self-centered to others, but it is still not perfect. Therefore, our loving propensity is incomplete. So the question becomes, how can the loving propensity be complete? The answer is when we love Krishna, because when we love Krishna, we love the person who is the root of all existence. Through Krishna, we learn to love everyone. Krishna is connected to every jiva. Therefore, our loving propensity will expand to maximum when we love Krishna. This is the perfection of the loving propensity. The example to understand this is that when you water the roots of a tree, every branch, every leaf gets watered. Or when you feed the stomach, the entire body gets the strength. Similarly, when we love Krishna, then Krishna is connected to every single living entity, and we end up loving every single entity, and then we don't have enviousness with anyone. So I'm only going to cover these important points from preface. So you will be reading the entire preface. I'm pretty sure you will find one or more inquiries from preface. Questions, comments, realizations, we'll cover briefly from introduction viewpoints as well. All right. So introduction, you follow the overview chart. The key points in introduction are, first is Mangalacharan, meaning invocation of auspiciousness. Then the second is the contents of the book, meaning the overview is described in introduction, which we populated the chart that essentially is described but without the visual. And then we have the definition of pure devotional service. So first is the Mangalacharan, or invoking auspiciousness. So there are three purposes of Mangalacharan. So we chant invocation prayers every single time we talk about spirituality. And the purpose of chanting invocation prayers comes right from the scriptures explained here in introduction. Three purposes. First is the objective of the book, that let that Lord Krishna be glorified. Krishna is the objective of this book. Therefore, it is to you, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances. So when we do invocation prayers, one of the invocation prayers is, of course, to Krishna also, which we say, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, that prayer. The second purpose of Mangalacharan prayer is to offer obeisances to worshipable Gopinath. Offering obeisances to Krishna and Guru, as well as to all devotees in general. And in the introduction, the metaphor is explained with the metaphor of sharks in the ocean. Advanced devotee disregard the insignificant rivers of liberation. As compared to ocean, the river contains very less water. On its own sense, river may have a lot of water, but in comparison to ocean, river is very little. Same way, amount of pleasure through liberation is very limited as compared to the pleasure that one gets through devotion. Therefore, liberation is compared to a river, while devotion is compared to an ocean. Devotees free from the metaphor of time is explained with that comparison of devotees so deep into the ocean that the net of time cannot trap them. The net can trap a fish, but the net of time, which is the ultimate killer, does not affect devotees because the devotees are deep in the ocean of devotion, where the net of time, the ultimate killer, does not reach. What makes time fearful in this world is that time controls and time destroys. In the spiritual world, time does not control, time does not destroy. And the third reason for Mangalacharan prayers is the benediction offered, meaning the protection from the volcanoes of argumentative logicians, and to be free from the impersonalist misconception. Therefore, for our own protection, we chant the invocation prayers. So going forward, all of you should attend or join the class before the invocation prayers start. Don't underestimate the invocation prayers. They are very important prayers, which Acharyas have demonstrated. So we'll soon cover in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Sukadeva Goswami starts speaking, he has a whole chapter on invocation. If you attend my spiritual master's classes, or for that matter, any spiritual master, my spiritual master class, the invocation is 2-page long. The invocation, the kirtan and the invocation generally goes on for 15-20 minutes. We are doing just 1 or 2 minute invocation. So invocations are very important. So don't undermine. Don't just say, oh, I will join the class after the invocation is done, because who cares for the invocation? No, it's very important. It's coming right from the book, Nectar of Devotion. Questions, comments, realizations? All right. The second point in introduction is about the contents of the book overview. So we already populated the overview chart. And as I said, that it is explained in one of the paragraphs in Nectar of Devotion introduction. When you read, you will come through this. When you have the visual in front of you, it will make it easy to follow. So we'll read from Nectar of Devotion introduction, paragraph number 2. Kunal Prabhu will read. The paragraph number 2 starts with, let me offer my respectful obeisances.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the great devotees and acharyas, holy teachers, who are compared to sharks in the great ocean of nectar and who do not care for the various rivers of liberation. Impersonalists are very fond of merging into the Supreme.
Prabhu, you are
Like
on
the
paragraph.
rivers.
You are on paragraph number 4. I want paragraph number 2. Let me
Okay,
offer
so
my
let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, by whose inspiration I have been engaged in the matter of compiling this summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the sublime science of devotional service as pronounced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago in West Bengal, India, to propagate the movement of Krishna consciousness.
devotional service as propounded by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Prabhupada starts by offering obeisances. Srila Prabhupada is teaching us. He's doing prayers, offering obeisances to Srila Rupa Goswami and to his own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Prabhupada said that he did a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So I already described that. Prabhupada didn't translate verse by verse by verse. Prabhupada instead translated Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as a summary study into Nectar of Devotion. So these Mangalacharan prayers are very important to invoke auspiciousness, which Srila Prabhupada is showing by example. That Prabhupada is also following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. And similarly, before starting Chaitanya Charitamrita, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he also asked for permission to be able to write and speak about Krishna. So unless one is authorized by Krishna, no one can speak, no one can write, no one can hear about Krishna. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations? All right. So we'll read paragraph number 6. Matan Prabhu will read. The paragraph number 6 which starts with the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami.
Hare Krishna. The author of Bhakti Rasamana Sindhu Sri La Rupa Goswami very humbly submits that he is just trying to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Although he humbly thinks himself unfit for this work, that should be the attitude of all preachers of Krishna consciousness movement. Following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, we should never think of ourselves as great preachers, but should always consider that we are simply instrumental to the previous acharyas, and simply by following in their footsteps, we may be able to do something for the benefit of suffering humanity.
Very good. So this is the humility. The humility is the mood of a preacher. When we go to preach, when we go for book distribution, the purpose is to destroy our ego. The purpose of preaching, the purpose of book distribution is to please Srila Prabhupada. So when we go out on preaching, many of you are preachers, you will see people will slam their door on you. And they will say, go away. But this is all meant for our ego to be shattered, rather than saying, oh, why are you doing so and so? No, it is for our ego to be shattered. So preaching is very important activity. Questions, comments, realizations before I speak the last point for today about the concept of rasa? All right. So I'll explain briefly about this concept of rasa. Now, botanical analysis of a flower in a laboratory is correct on its own. But that botanical analysis of a flower will not lead me to understand the beauty of a flower. On the other hand, an artist, he sees the beauty of the flower, the petals, the fragrance, the color, etc. Same way, analytical study of the absolute truth will lead to impersonal conception, and one will not relish the absolute truth. Therefore, we all have to become a rasic devotee to relish the mellow of devotion. For those of you who are in Toronto area, you will hear our dear Vijay Prabhu always talk about this: become a rasic devotee. Don't try to analyze spirituality like somebody analyzing a flower, the botanical analysis of a flower in a laboratory. That you will not relish spirituality at all. You will end up becoming a jnani. You will lead to impersonal conception of spirituality. No, we have to become a rasic devotee to relish the mellow of devotion. So this rasa is not possible in analysis. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam at the very start, it says, become a rasic devotee. We'll soon be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. The first three verses are the crux of Srimad Bhagavatam. And 1.1.3, it says, rasayam, just as in southern India, you have this eatable item that you make, rasayam. That's the word used in Srimad Bhagavatam to explain that you have to become a rasic devotee. Now, what are these primary and secondary rasa? We briefly read through today. So there are 5 primary rasas, or 5 primary modes of relationship with Krishna. The 5 primary rasa are Shant rasa, Dasya rasa, Sakhya rasa, Vatsalya rasa means parental, and Madhurya rasa means the loving rasa in conjugal love. And then there are 7 secondary rasa to add flavor to the relationship. Meghna Saman.
Sorry, the fourth rasa you said was
I will
Shanta rasa, Dasya rasa, Sakhya rasa.
Yeah. 4th is Vatsalya, means parental rasa. And 5th is Madhurya. So don't go with this numerical sequence. They are all identical. There's no higher or lower rasa. Of course, Madhurya is more relishable to Krishna. But Krishna also relishes Dasya rasa. So all are equal rasa. Okay? And then there are 7 secondary rasa. The secondary rasa are to add flavor to relationship. So one of the secondary rasa is bhaya. There is no devotee in this bhaya rasa. Example, Vrajvasis are sakhas, sakhis and sakhas. They are in the Sakhya rasa. When Krishna was caught by Kaliya, so the Vrajvasis, they experienced bhayanak rasa. So this is the secondary rasa. Or Mother Yashoda, secondary rasa is krodh, anger. So Mother Yashoda's primary rasa is Vatsalya, parental. And the secondary rasa to add flavor to the relationship is krodh or anger, for Mother Yashoda as an example. So the secondary rasa, they do not form basis of eternal relationship with Krishna and devotees. The secondary rasas are like additional flavors. Just as, say, when you are making dal or whatever sabji, just as in the dal you add additional spices in the dal, in the sabji, etc. Means those additional spices are optional. Sometimes they are present, sometimes not. But even if you don't add those additional spices, the dal will still be tasty on itself. Similarly, it's the 5 primary rasas that one can have relationship with Krishna. Questions, comments, realizations? We are just about 5 minutes away from the end time today. All right. So, as I explained at the start, that spiritual endeavor after every class, first, without me saying, is the standard spiritual endeavor is for you to read that we covered in class today. So today we covered preface and introduction. We didn't cover all of introduction, but you can read preface and introduction. Second, on a Google form, you will populate striking points from today. Third, on the same Google form, you will populate 1 or more inquiries. So each statement in Nectar of Devotion is very deep. You will need a lot more time. Don't just allocate 15 minutes to read. You will need a lot more time. And then the fourth point is about Srila Prabhupada lectures. So first read all the points from the book and from our notes. Then listen to Prabhupada lecture. And on the Google form, you will also populate points from Prabhupada lecture, striking points from Prabhupada lecture. So there you have separate space for, on the Google form, you have separate space for striking points from the class, and then you have separate space for striking points from Prabhupada lectures. Questions, comments, realizations? I want to hear everybody's feelings about what we have discussed so far. Everybody okay? Anybody in anxiety? Am I going at a reasonable pace?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So memorization, I will, do you want me to give you the memorization today or you are okay? The memorization of the first verse is essentially the entire Nectar of Devotion, which we'll cover at the next class. But if you are willing, I can give it to you so you have some sense of what to expect at our next class. Whatever is your preference.
Yes, Prabhuji, you can give it to us.
Okay. Anybody else? Or is that only Subhash Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right. So
Yes,
I have on the screen 1.1.11 verse, which we also explained today on how to relate with the reference number. So I can recite this verse, and if you all want, you can also recite. So let me first recite. So this is the definition of pure devotional service. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena Krishna anushilanam bhaktiruttama. So you saw that what I did was in the third line, the words shilanam I recited together with the third line. So all of you can unmute and recite one line after me, please. Anya abhilashita shunyam
Anya
Asunyam
jnana karmadi anavritam
Adi Anavratam
anukulena Krishna anushilanam
Anukulena Krishna
Anukulanam
bhaktiruttama.
Bhaktiruttama.
So take a snapshot of this and you can try to memorize either the Sanskrit or the English translation or just the essence. Kamana, you want to read the translation from the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monastic philosophy and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. Hare Krishna.
Good. We are just about at 11:30 here in Toronto time. Are we okay to stop here?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Krishna.
Krishna.